Welcome to the May 14th Shellfish Committee meeting. I just want to start off with a notice of recording. Please note that tonight's meeting is recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel, and in accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. No? Okay. First order is to approve the meeting minutes from March 12th, as we did not have an April meeting. Anything up for discussion amongst the committee on that? No?
I just have a question. I can't remember if you're absent, do you vote on the minutes or do you?
No, I don't
No,
think
you
so.
would abstain, yeah, because you weren't there.
Okay. Can I recommend a motion to approve?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Alright. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Alright. I just have one comment. Although the meeting didn't happen last month, the town did release the comprehensive plan, the 10-year. Is that a 10-year also?
No, that's the dredge
Dredging,
plan. The
okay.
comprehensive dredge plan is a 10-year plan.
Yep.
The local comprehensive plan is like the plan for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
What the town's like moving forward towards in terms of like housing, land usage,
Yeah. And on,
water bodies.
And on there they had like just improving water quality on the south side, and potentially like as far as aquaculture goes, potentially adding aquaculture to the south side. So I had a couple notes on that just to go over, but I don't have nothing crazy on there. And then there was the dredging plan, which there was a engineer here, but we'll go through that whole business. All right, cool. Yeah, anyone have any comments on the local comprehensive plan? All right. We'll move on to the natural resources report. Amy?
Okay, so shellfish growing areas. I did get rid of a couple of the May 1 closures because we now have May 15 closures. So they supersede those. So effective tomorrow in 3 days, we have the closure of the Katuitt Town Landing mooring area. I posted by land today. The only spot I didn't get to is, I think it's right around 110 Hummock Lane. There has to be a sign that goes in here. And then we have a series of 5 buoys that will be put out tomorrow for that. As we know, May 1st, North Bay closed, Marston's Mills River closed, and we also have the closure of the Pirates Cove and Sequoia River area. Barnstable Harbor, effective May 1st, because everything else had closed down. April 1st, we had Mill Creek, Kevanee Lane closed, and then we lifted the Razor Clam closure that extended from the Barnstable Yacht Club over to Salton Point. They're over 4 inches now, so that meets our minimum requirements, and it's open both commercially and recreationally. So if you have any really crazy windy days, you can go over there. Centerville River and, well, Centerville River's always closed, but East Bay closed May 1st. This is a blow up of Katuitt Bay, in case anybody needs to look at that. Larger. This is the little SP where we grow the oysters, and this is our designated relay area there. We do plan on planting oysters on bottom there for this upcoming season, so moving them less. And then all of the rest of these maps are on other maps I already showed you. Does anyone have any questions about the shellfish growing areas? Okay. We have our monthly propagation reports. I have the one from April and the one from May. Do you want to hear them both?
May.
I might as well stay with the recent one.
Okay. I wasn't sure, so I brought them.
Is there anything much different between the two?
I guess just a couple things. All right, we'll just go through
Like
them.
a highlight, maybe it was something we
I
missed
mean,
if
it's
you
not
want.
like they're very long, so we'll just read them both. It's fine. Propagations, this is for the 9th of April. Propagation staff has been assisting other natural resources staff with herring runs, installation of an osprey pole at Eugene Forts Beach, and plover fencing along with shellfish enforcement on weekends. Several interviews were conducted for 2 seasonal shellfish assistants, and both spots have been filled. Aiden Crivero will be returning. He worked with them last year. He had started as an aquaculture intern through the MIT and Hui's Sea Grant program. And then Jess, I am not going to say her last name because I'm going to butcher it, started April 14th. Her previous experience involves working on a private aquaculture grant in Wellfleet, and she's also a commercial shellfisher. Very good digger. Liz Lewis gave a presentation on cohogs at the Adult Community Center. Amanda Lee and Cece Dunham, our shellfish technicians, taught another class about shellfish and their adaptations to 5th graders. They've also been working on setting up dissection classes and field trips to see propagation activities and learn to shellfish. Since oyster season has ended and Scudder Lane recreational area is closed, propagation staffs were going to prepare last year's remote set for planting and transitioning from winter to spring. Racks that were sunk deep in Katuitt Bay have been brought closer to shore so they can work on them, and survival looks great so far. 700 bags have been made for the remote set. We have to make our own bags for that. And in April, we begin the long process of filling them with shell for delivery to the hatchery in June. They've been to the shell pile a lot off-tide. Staff spent a couple of days retrieving lost and shifted buoys and signs over the winter and have replaced them. As always, all predator exclusion nets have been cleaned for the month. Running tallies, we have, there are 4.5 million cohogs that are being purchased at various sizes, 1 million oysters that are purchased as singles, and then 700 bags of remote set. You get however many you get. We're buying 200,000 scallops at 2 millimeters, $20 per thousand, so we're spending $4,000 on those. At the March meeting, Tim had some questions about the history of some of the scallop propagation we've dabbled in before. Fall of 2012, we had bought 20 to 40 millimeters, so larger than the ones we're going to get this year. And with testing and at buying 100,000, it was $50 for every 1,000, so we spent a little over $5,000. And then in fall of 2015, we bought again 20 to 40 millimeter seed, and 300,000 of them for $16,500. So we're getting back into it slowly, and hoping to expand it, especially in like the Hyannis area where we still have healthy existing eelgrass beds. May, they've had a great month. The water temperature is finally warm enough for them to get started on summer tasks. Aiden is back and has begun digging cohogs at propagation site with the rest of the team, transferring them to recreational and commercial harvest areas, essentially our designated relay areas that are open to everyone, and then our 2 recreational areas on the south side. Bridge Street has returned to a designated cohog area because the mooring area closure is no longer in effect there, which should make the public very happy because they didn't like having to walk between the 2nd and 8th docks to the left to go find cohogs, and it was difficult to plant them there. They've already dug almost 140 bushels this season with a goal of 500 for the year. They've pulled propagation nets at 1 location so far with many more to go. At Scudder, they've been working on planting the remote set oysters and they're almost done. They transferred their singles, which have been overwintered in bags, to trays for this growing season. The Centerville River Relay started May 2nd, and over 146 bushels from the river have been harvested thus far and replanted in East Bay. There will likely be 2 more sessions for digging. They also planted the experimental remote sets in East Bay earlier this month. Amanda and Cece are delivering a lesson dissecting cohogs at Barnstable United Elementary School later this week. It'll be an exciting opportunity to increase interest in the local environment. They continue to clean their propagation nets and perform regular water testing in Barnstable Harbors, the 3 bays, and in East Bay. I did test kitchen, their dissection class, like they did like a sample of it in the office the other day, and it's great. If I was in the 5th grade, I'd be super down with it. Any questions on the monthly propagation report from the committee?
Say your name, please.
Bruce Blackman. A question for you. You mentioned 200,000 scallops. Did I hear that correctly? I think it was the first.
Yeah, I believe so. And cheaper than.
Yeah, so this year we're purchasing 200,000 scallops at 2 millimeters. They're $20 per 1,000. So we're spending around $4,000.
You scatter them throughout the town, or you kind
So
of place them where they yield
typically, we
grant?
plant them the Sepuit River, kind of in the like channel that's sort of outside of Oyster Harbors on the Katuitt Bay side, and then we're starting Hyannis. We're test kitchening Hyannis this year.
Thanks.
Anything else?
So we have clamming classes that have been announced. We have a number of learn to shellfish classes that are offered to everybody. We have 2 learn to shellfish, clamming class for kids that are coming up in June. And then we also are offering 4 learn to razor clam classes for the general public over at Huckins. So those I think I have, our learn to razor clam class flyer. So it's very fancy. I think already 10 people have signed up for May 17th. I don't remember how many people have signed up for May 31st, but it's popular, so should gather some interest. And then they also have posted to the website that they're doing Flupsy tours. People can sign up for them by emailing Liz, and they've had a lot of interest in that. I think we kind of covered the Centerville Relay stuff in the propagation report. And just a reminder to growers, 2025 Vibrio season starts May 19th. It is the 14th of May. If you have not picked up your Vibrio logbook, please do so. Although some officers, including myself, carry around a stack of them in our trucks. So if you run into us in the field and you need one, just ask for one and we can, throw it your way. But definitely need them if you're going to be marketing oysters starting in 5 days.
All right, thank you, Amy. New business, Shellfish gift account discussion.
Yep, that would be me. I'd be
Okay.
happy to talk about that. So, I'll come before you guys tonight to talk about creating a gift account, and I've had one at Sandy Neck for like 20 years. So occasionally people come along and want to donate gifts or goods, and as you know, we have to go before town council to have that approved. So even if somebody wanted to, give us some equipment, we would technically have to go before town council. So there is a way to set up a gift account. We just had a generous gift from Mr.
Gerard Gainey.
Gerard Gainey gave us a generous gift.
We give.
It was this time, the first time around, $500, and then there's a grant set up for future donations. He's quite ill, and he was like one of the founding members of BARS and was a shellfish volunteer for a very long time, and just wanted to kind of continue to give to the propagation program even, after his passing, his eventual passing.
So that's a situation where he wanted to give, and then we had to go to a town council meeting, and it takes up a lot of time, a lot of effort. So we have an opportunity to set up a gift account. It's a separate account from the revolving account, and it would be under my control to then use, and we would clarify what it could be used for, really anything in the propagation or education portion of our shellfish program. So I'm waiting to go before town council till after the budget season, because it's always a little crazy right about now. I have it drafted, but I did want to provide that draft to the town manager with hopefully this board's blessing on that concept.
Now, do you approach them with like, does there have to be like an amount tied to that account that?
No,
So it's just an account
it's it's like a more of a checking account.
instead of having to go each time for each individual
Right.
transaction.
Right,
Okay.
it still would be audited, it would obviously need to be used, I'd have to justify what the funds were used for, but it would be a much quicker conduit.
Just
This
set up.
individual had to wait like 2 months to
Yeah,
even
I mean, that-
submit a check.
I have no problem with that. Anyone else want to comment? I mean, it makes sense to have something set up.
Just a comment, you might want to add a box.
State your name.
Tourism license bills. Add a box on the licensing renewals. I want to donate $10, $20, $30, like.
So we can't solicit,
Yeah.
that.
Would that be called a solicitation though?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely, yeah,
That's
there has to be
Well, money you
separate.
make on it.
Yeah, but the goods too has always been a real quandary for us,
Yeah.
so we've struggled with bars on trying to have them give something directly somebody else and not going through us, and this would be an opportunity for us to be able to take gear and such and then redirect that.
They donated, wanted to donate AEDs for all of our boats because they do a lot of volunteer work for us, and it was, you know, you had to create an entire resolve for it and then go before town council, and this would be a more appropriate vessel for those types of things, so it's just easier reception.
On the Westport, they have 2 gift accounts for their shellfish department. One is for seed and one is for equipment. If somebody wanted to donate, I'm not suggesting, you know, go through the trouble, make 2 accounts, but if somebody wanted to donate specifically for either or, would that be like respected, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
And we have a lot of that with our terrapin program.
Mhm.
We're just so excited about the terrapins. Their children might interface with them, and then they want to give back to that. And so
Yeah.
that goes into the Sandy Neck gift account, but we make sure it goes back out.
Cool.
Yep.
Yes?
Bruce Blackman, a question for you. This is going to be to supplement your activities, that it's not like there's not gonna be an offset that the town's gonna apply to you, say, oh, you've got $10,000 in this account, so it's
No.
it's in addition to whatever normal funding you get from the town. Gotcha.
That is correct. So we still need to go through every year having our funds allocated by the, we present our budget and the town council would vote on our budget. The Shellfish program runs through the general fund, so taxpayer money, as well as a revolving fund, which is where we collect our fees. But both of those are controlled by the town council. This would just be it's usually small gifts. This last gift we got, we had Cece and Amanda went into one of the elementary schools and we were able to purchase the kids, like shell boxes for them to put the different shells in, and that's an example. It was like $140. So we took that money in and then we were able to put it right back out to a good cause. I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself. Nina Coleman, Director of Natural Resources.
Do you need us to?
I would love
on
a
this?
vote. That would really help.
Well, I recommend a motion to approve the Shellfish gift account for Department of Natural Resources. Sound good enough?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Next, we have behavioral expectations regulation discussion.
Yes. So this was, I mentioned back in March that in recent years, we've encountered issues with how the general public interacts with each other, issues with how the general public interacts with staff, and where you see that before in history and where they have a regulation to address it is at Sandy Neck. So we thought having something in place, because, you know, just warning someone that they're being inappropriate is fine and good, but if you can log that and then they continue inappropriate behavior, then it can be a finable offense and you can deal with it in a more formal way. So this is just for discussion. 407-2 is actually specific to the SNAP permit, so we'll have to go back to that. And so is that one. I put them all in the same thing. So 407-12 would address behavioral expectations for the commercial fishery. There is essentially the exact same wording for the recreational fishery. Expectation of behavior, abusive, inappropriate, or aggressive behavior towards other shellfishers and or natural resources staff will result in the violator's catch being confiscated and the violator's shellfishing privilege being suspended for a period of no less than 1 shellfishing week. If continued violations under this condition apply, the violator's shellfish permit may be further suspended or revoked. Any person who's issued a suspension or revocation notice will be provided the opportunity for a hearing with the Director of Marine Environmental Affairs Department pursuant to 407-71 of these regulations. So it essentially gives us a way to deal with some of the behavior that's been kind of on the uprise, I'd say, over the past like 5 to 6 years. And then the same wording would be under the expectations for, the recreational shellfishers. Does that make sense to everyone? Do you have any questions about the intent of a regulation like that?
I think it seems a little vague.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like, 'cause anyone could just say, you know, you're being mean, and then, so what defines inappropriate?
well, I mean, so you can't necessarily take everyone to court for sexual harassment comments, and there are people that continuously make those types of comments, and they need to be more formally dealt with.
But if it's not criminal, like, I
None
mean,
of
like,
these violations are criminal, they're all non-criminal offenses.
Did you put?
I just think that it should be a little bit more specific and
Okay,
inappropriate and aggressive, like,
yeah, like
Could be an
if you
interpretation,
are
you know?
threatening the physical safety
Oh,
of
yeah,
an
that's
officer
illegal.
or another person,
that's illegal,
yeah.
yeah.
You know, if
Threatening.
you are just spewing racial epithets at people
I think
and
those are
acting
all,
aggressively towards them, you know, these are the types of situations. It's not like I don't like the, you know, if I can't think of an instance
Yeah.
where
So almost just,
I would take that, you know, regulation and use it. It would have to be something pretty egregious.
so pretty much adding like just a little bit more specific,
More definition.
just to cover
yeah,
your
it just
base.
seems very vague.
So it gives you guys reason,
Okay.
or more.
So like
ability
if
to-
formally under our definitions section addressing a definition
Threats.
for aggressive, addressing a definition for inappropriate
May help.
Yeah,
might help?
Yeah.
Okay, I can come back with that for next month.
I think it's a good step.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but I think we need to go there.
Yeah,
And it's not,
If it's,
it's not that many, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've been
No,
dealing with
but-
this at Sandy Neck,
It's-
it's like one or two a year.
but it always
And
takes
you know
one
when you see
person
it, you know
to
when you see it.
fight it
Yeah.
and, you know.
Yeah.
It's a.
this would be a way for us to address the kind of road vigilantism we experienced last year in the recreational fishery, that we weren't really able to address in any formal way.
what do you mean vigilante? Is it-
Taking the responsibilities of a natural resource officer into your
Oh.
own hands as a member of the general public.
Mm,
That's what we refer to
gotcha.
as road vigilantism.
Mhm.
Yeah.
mm,
Aggressively doing that.
Yes.
yeah.
And it's not appropriate.
So we'll. Need a few
We can,
adjustments
yeah,
and
we
come
can,
back
yeah,
to it
we can
next
table it
month.
to next month, that's fine.
Yes.
Bruce Blackman, a question for you. Are you gonna publish this on your website so we can?
Only once we have a draft that would be for public review. I like to try to put what the committee has voted on that would then be scheduled for a public hearing up on the website for public review and comment at least a month ahead of a public hearing.
Yeah. I can't see very much from here, so it's difficult to comment. But, I mean, you know, you're in a law enforcement job, people are gonna swear at you, use profanity. I mean, is that what you're saying, raise it a level of losing?
No.
Okay.
It's
That's-
other things.
That's,
Oh gosh, exactly.
We're gonna
That's it.
criticize.
I'm very used to being sworn
not
out on
what
a
we're
regular
referring to.
basis.
And that's my concern
Yeah.
is somebody being, you know, maybe a little upset and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden that day that person,
Lashes out.
well, no, not lashes out, I'm saying, you know, more like free speech stuff where
Oh, yeah, no.
now all of
we-
a sudden it's illegal
No,
or
we
now
don't.
you're getting in trouble because it's
Yeah.
being interpreted that way.
No. The intent would never be to tread on your freedom of speech.
Mhm.
But over the years, there are like consistent comments that, you know,
cross the line.
cross a line.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you're technically law enforcement.
Yeah.
Right? To a point, so
Yeah,
it's having respect for you guys.
right.
Alright, any other comments? Alright, SNAP eligible shellfish permits discussion.
Right. So we have the Brave Act that allows for any veteran of the Commonwealth to get a shellfish permit in any coastal community of Massachusetts for the price of a resident permit. That's awesome. We have a lot of people who suffer food insecurity, may not be able to afford the gear, may not be able to afford a permit, and we have a resource that's out there for them as, you know, sustenance to their weekly food intake. And we wanted to create like a SNAP permit essentially. So SNAP referring to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's a federal nutrition program administered by the Department of Transitional Assistance for Massachusetts residents. And we would offer a SNAP permit so long as they could show us eligibility at the time of application for that permit, they could have a permit for free for that year. We know that SNAP permits can be taken away or reissued for any number of various reasons. That's not something that we would be interested in tracking on a regular basis of people. You know, when you get a resident permit, we check your residency one time for the year. So I think, you know, if you have SNAP eligibility and can prove such and would like a shellfish permit, that it's well within our town's means to offer those for free to those individuals.
Any comment, committee? I mean, if you're willing to get your own food, I have no issue with that.
What if you found out that these people ended up causing a problem at some point? Would you take away this program, or, you know, what if people were gonna go out there and catch them and then sell them on the side or something like that?
Anyone that has any type of permit could do that.
No, I know, but we're doing it for free now. That's all. I'm just trying to think of
Well,
like
it's
the
also,
worst case
I mean,
scenario.
if it's a worst case scenario, it's
Yeah.
something that can be dealt with.
Yeah.
within
That's what
a
I'm
year.
saying, yeah, I'm saying I'm for it, as long as if it gets
Any
abused.
permit is subject to the same regulations that any other permit holder would have.
I guess, would you consider maybe making that permit, like, have a different, you know, on the top corner, like a different letter for a SNAP program, so that if you had a problem with the person, you could tell if it was a regular paying person or a SNAP program? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like on the permits, it says.
I don't know why we would want to segregate people who are on SNAP benefits versus anybody else that just pays for a permit.
Just
like-
because you're giving out free permits, to see if it was, you know, abused in any way, you know?
I mean, anyone who has a violation, whether it's a verbal, a written warning, a citation, a suspension, or a revocation, is logged into our system under that individual. I don't think it necessarily matters to discriminate between people who would get a permit for free and somebody who wouldn't. I mean, there are towns that offer their veterans permits for free, and I'm pretty sure they don't treat them that way.
So they get a recreational amount.
They would get, yeah, they're subject to the
Exactly.
same exact regulations. It would just be, so the way it would look
And
is,
it's for Barnstable
under
residents.
under our classes of permits, it's only for
Yeah.
residents.
Yeah, it's not a state.
No.
Nope. So it's under the same, you know, recreational conditions of any other permit that we would issue to a resident.
So how much would the financial benefit be?
Well, you know, if you were going out multiple days because you didn't have a job or something, and I'm not saying that's everybody, but some people do scam benefits. That's just the reality of the situation. I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm just saying, you know, if people people hear about that and then, hey, I'm doing that, you can do that, and then next thing you know, there's a bunch of people out there causing a problem. I'm not saying that's the problem, but
I think just the bigger picture is, you know, people aren't gonna do that.
I hope so.
And I mean, obviously, if issues do arise, then we can revisit that, but I think, you know.
I would also say, as an enforcement agent, that those people are gonna exist in any category.
Yeah,
Whether you pay for your permit or not.
yeah.
There are people who are always willing to like
Try to
skim
get
off the
over.
top or to take more than they're allowed.
And I mean, they'll get caught in the act or not, you know, but I think this program would have more good than bad come out of it, so. I don't
That is the intent.
I get ask a question. Yeah, well, a comment first. You're probably not gonna see a great number of people under the, you know, using this program, but that's fine, you know, if there's a handful. My question is though, usually with SNAP, you have to recertify every 12, 36 months. Is there gonna be some and I think may actually be on the card, like a credit card when it expires. Maybe when they renew, you could require, that they're still eligible for that
Right,
program.
so like I explained to you before, Bruce, when, your commercial permit, how many times do you have to prove to us a year that you live in this town? Just the one. So if they show us once per year, right?
Oh, yeah, once a
So
year.
if you have SNAP eligibility and proof of such,
Gotcha.
at that time that you renew or request a permit, it's good for a year.
Gotcha.
And then the following year, if you don't have that eligibility anymore, you wouldn't be eligible for that permit, but if you do, then you're good for another year.
Gotcha. Thanks for the clarification.
Just one more thing about kind of made me think was, there's a large amount of people in this community that get laid off from January through April. And I don't know, and I know a lot of them are on unemployment benefits. I don't know if that comes with SNAP benefits, but theoretically, if most people that are laid off on Cape Cod are laid off during the renewal season for permits, right? So
I think that's a completely.
It's a
different
completely
program.
separate
what
entity.
do you mean?
It's the.
SNAP is not the same as unemployment.
Yeah,
They're not.
No, I know, but does people that get unemployment don't get SNAP, like do a
No,
lot
not
of them?
necessarily, no.
No.
Because it's good, it's all based on yearly income, and unemployment is just, a state-funded program for people who are.
You see where I'm going with that though?
Yeah,
Like if
but
people
it's
are
not
all
related,
getting
they're not
SNAP
related.
and then eligible in the wintertime, then they
They're
got their permit, and
they're not
then,
related.
but it was like a thing that happened every year because they're landscaping or working in the service industry,
Not related.
Yeah.
If they're on SNAP, then they're on it for, say, 12 months to 36 months,
Okay.
they have a card.
Mhm.
I'm not a pro at
Okay.
this, but, I mean, that's kinda,
It's like a food insecurity.
exactly,
Snap,
yeah.
right? So,
Families.
Yeah. So, and then there's one more regulation?
No,
Or-
those were the two things. We wanted to discuss behavioral expectations, which fall under a couple of regulations because it applies to the recreational fishery and the commercial fishery. And then the SNAP eligible permits discussion was 407.2 is just the definition of what SNAP is, and then 407.3 would be the addition of that category to our classes of recreational shellfishing permits.
Everyone feel comfortable voting on this?
If not, we can table it to next month to
Yeah, alright, I recommend a motion to approve, regulation 407-2 and 407-3 for SNAP eligible shellfish permits.
Just a quick question, number 1 and 2 both have 407-3.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't know,
because it's covered under classes of permit conditions.
okay,
So by voting on just the SNAP specific wording for 407.3, you would not also be voting on the behavioral expectations of 407.3.
good point.
alright, thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept both rules.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Both rules?
No,
Oh, okay.
Just as it
Ju-
pertains
just the
to the
SNAP.
SNAP.
Just to step
Alright.
up.
yep,
Yeah.
Alright,
I thought it was two.
alright, all in favor, say aye.
alright.
All opposed? Alright,
So that one I can now
Oh, so you gotta
draft
go
and
back.
put it on to the town website for public comment. Although I won't schedule a public hearing for that until probably September or October.
alright, next we have upcoming proposed coastal projects. First one is the applicant, Zenon. It's 251 Green Dunes Drive, Hyannisport. And do we have,
We do.
alright,
Yes.
would you guys like to present?
Sure, just to make one clarification. Obviously, we do have both reports from our independent shellfish surveyor and the town
Shellfish
biologist.
biologist,
So
yes.
both reports are exactly the same, exactly the same conclusion that the area is not suitable to support shellfish. So, and also make a clarification that the project is for the use of a motorized vessel in full compliance with the conservation guidelines, which will provide 1 foot separation to the bottom. That is pretty much it.
Any comments from your office?
Nope, so when we did the survey out there, it is a muck pit and, there was a little bit of concern with a motorized vessel and like possible, turbidity. But they will be conforming with the pier regulations for that size vessel, attached to that size pier. And as of right now, it's still a prohibited area, so, we didn't have any opposition to it because there really was nothing for us to oppose. I think this project only had to come back to us because it already had gone to conservation once because they wanted to switch from a non-motorized vessel to a motorized.
Okay. Any comments from the committee? Oh, yes.
Paul Caruso, Marston's Mills, but the private shellfish consultant for the project, just as Amy had mentioned, it's a muck hole. We found one coal hog about as far away from the boat as you could get, on 1 square foot of sandy bottom. The rest is mud up to your waist. I'm surprised Liz sacrificed her people to go out there.
Oh, she did it herself. She wouldn't.
Oh,
let
she
it-
did it herself
yeah,
out
she
to
wouldn't
West
let her people go
Snowshoe.
out there.
I saw 3 years there on my camera. It was 3 years they went out there, right?
Yes, yeah, and now with the rest of our seasonal employees, she has increased her clutch to 5. So she needs 5 humans with her for the summer
We're
now.
welcome anytime.
Yeah, thank you.
Crew.
So this committee either, decides to take action or not take action on something, so,
Vote on that?
Yep.
And then.
whether or
okay.
not you would like to take action on it.
Alright, if there's no other discussion, make a motion to approve the plans for 251 Green Dunes Drive in Hyannisport. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the project for 251 Green Dunes Drive.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Alright, you're all set.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the town of Barnstable DPW. This is the plan.
This is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is part of the 10-year comprehensive permit for dredging. Looks like we got 19 navigation channels and basins that they want to tend to, all 19?
Yep,
Oh, wow.
not all at once.
Yeah, not all at once, different. Where are they now? In Hyannis?
So they're not anywhere yet. They
Oh,
only just
I
got
thought-
this 10-year plan approved by the Conservation Commission, and it was contingent on them bringing to them an extended schedule and timeline, which I believe they must have because Griffin Bowden, who's a project engineer at DPW, said that they received their orders of conditions. They wouldn't have issued them if they hadn't given that timeline. They will share that timeline with us. At the time that we met with them, we had concerns about shellfish removal prior to work. Typically in orders of conditions from Conservation Commission, they're required to give us 21 working days notice, which for these types of projects is just not going to be sufficient. It's going to cost money. So we met with DPW to kind of discuss those options, and essentially, even though they have this 10-year plan approved through Conservation Commission, the town still has to approve the money for each project on an individual basis. So there's gonna have to be like requests to the council for money for each of these projects as they move down the line. So we discussed giving us at least 18 months notice if we would have to put in our own request. And then Griffin said that we could potentially work together so that the cost of shellfish removal could be carried into the capital improvement plan that they would then bring to town council on a project by project basis. So they're willing to work with us, which is great. So just very quick timeline because we don't have the extended timeline yet. In fiscal year 26, which would be a start in fall of 2026, they're looking at the West Bay Inner Channel, which is kind of like that S curve that comes around Joe's Grant into the bridge in West Bay. In fiscal year 28, which would be a start around fall of 2028, they're looking at the West Bay Outer and Sepuit River, so the rest of the channel going out into Nantucket Sound and Sepuit River.
Year 28.
Fall of 2028, yeah, so 3 years from now.
Is there a way at some point to get the list?
Yes, they are.
Like of these dates, so we don't have to write them down, you know, just to keep, just to know.
So once we have the extended timeline, it can be shared.
Cool.
This was just kind of like a snapshot that he had at the time that he met with us, and that was before they had provided that extended schedule to the Conservation Commission. So I don't even have that complete list yet. East Bay has been identified for 2029, and Barnstable Harbor has been identified for potentially 2029 and 2030. So as you can see, although it's 19 areas that are planned on being dredged and then beach nourishment attached to it, it's on an individual basis, and it's
So they
not
have,
all
they have
going to
an
happen.
order.
They do.
They don't, it's just the times.
Yep.
Could be-
And the funding isn't secured for any of them. It's gonna be on except for I think West Bay Inner Channel is, I think, secured because that's slated to start next fall. I can double check on that. But so it's gonna be on a case by case and approval of funds basis by basis.
And what do they do about the shellfish that might be getting dredged up?
And that's the meeting that we had with them, was to discuss that mitigation for removal of them ahead of the dredging, and that it could be costly, it could take time, and rolling that cost into the capital improvement plan that would be presented by DPW to
What do
town
they
council
plan
for
to do?
approval.
Like, how do they, like, do they plan to get them up? Or what-
There, we
Well,
don't,
it is.
we don't have that ironed out yet, but
Liz-
there's
Liz
essentially
was saying, several years ago or a few years ago?
a
in
lot of
Osterville,
years ago.
Or
Centerville
Woodsy
River.
and-
Centerville River,
yeah,
Chris
and-
Woods had like an escalator dredge.
Yeah,
And I don't know what they paid him, but
it was like something like 1 million clam or 100,000 clams or something like that. That
Yeah.
he was, there was like two guys, him and someone else or something, that were able to
Like
remove it out of there.
Chris and Scott Laurie.
it might have
Maybe,
been.
yeah.
Scott Laurie took it
So-
one time, I think, or something.
So I mean, if you're talking hundreds of thousands of clams, it's definitely worth getting those out of there.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, quite a few of these projects, I'm sure, are gonna have.
Yep.
Shellfish.
There's gonna be some areas that we're not able to do anything, like if they're doing dredging in a prohibited area,
Yeah.
we can't move that stuff, but like a good portion of the Centerville River is conditionally restricted, we have conditionally approved areas, and we have areas that are in open status year round. And in a vast majority of the areas that they plan to dredge, we would wanna have some sort of mitigation in place.
Do a relay type of a thing or something like that?
You know, it depends. That's something we kind of have to suss out, which is why we're glad that DPW is willing to work with us, because you know, it's like if you open it up to relays and then you're paying individuals, or do you hire somebody to come in and do it? And what
They
does
were
that
hired
look
as
like?
contractors, I believe. Yep.
Exactly.
Will this dredging improve the bottom to perhaps use it for shellfish propagation in the future?
So this is maintenance of already existing channels.
Okay.
And the 10-year plan is because they have to go essentially for like through a notice of intent for every single project, every single time. And towns now are looking towards these more comprehensive dredge and beach nourishment plans for the entire town over a long period of time. So they only have to submit once to the Conservation Commission and then are given time over those years to secure funding for those projects.
Okay.
If I understand it correctly.
Now, do they need a vote on this from us? or-
No, I mean, like, we don't like, this committee doesn't really vote on
Oh, yeah,
notices of
that-
intent,
that I
it's
don't-
just whether or not you like it and decide to take issue with it in a conservation commission hearing or not. And at this point, it's already been approved by the Conservation Commission, that was back in April. DPW did say if you guys have, more questions, if you want a formal presentation on this, because I am not the person to do that, that they would be willing to come to a meeting at a later date and go through the whole thing.
I think, it'd be worth having them come in for each project.
Yeah.
Like as they come up.
Because
Yeah.
just the broad
Yeah.
topic of the ordeal just doesn't cover the whole thing. And I want them to
You
be
could
come
watch
here
the
once and
Conservation
be like, oh,
Commission
we're
meeting
fine.
to see that, yeah.
Did you
But-
say 18 months notice on these
That's
things?
what-
Is what we would like, yeah.
But that's not approved yet or like guaranteed?
Oh,
Or
no,
it is,
that,
it is guaranteed?
yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool.
between us and DPW.
Yeah, so then, yeah, like you're saying like 18 months before the each one to come in?
That gives
Yeah.
plenty of time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Any other comments? Alright, we'll move on. Third is 90 Short Beach Road in Centerville.
Yes,
Representative John O'Day, is
Not-
here.
no.
Amy?
This one already went to the commission as well. I regretfully do not find out if they approved it or not. My broad assumption is that they did. It's to replace an existing timber bulkhead and stone revetment with new vinyl bulkhead. The existing bulkhead is failing. They provided pictures of that in the notice of intent that I had shared with you guys. There was no shellfish survey done because all of the work is being done via the upland. So similar to other jobs that are done completely via the upland, the only thing we recommend or request is that we be present for pre-construction meeting to establish like where the work limit zone is gonna be. So if they infringe upon that, it can be dealt with appropriately.
And this is, isn't it prohibited too?
I don't,
Yeah, I think it's past the Dan McCarthy Boulevard, boat ramp.
oh yeah, cause it's on
Yeah.
Short Beach Road, yeah.
Yeah, so it's forever prohibited, right?
Yeah.
So, no issues with this one, wouldn't matter anyway. Alright, and then, we'll move on to old business. When was this, 3 months ago now, or 3 meetings ago?
Yeah, I will say the two people that requested this be on the agenda are not present this evening.
Yes,
And
I
it's
mean-
not my topic for discussion, really.
Yeah, it's on here, dredging and safety issues, from March, a couple people who wanted it on here aren't here. Does anyone wanna
I
comment?
made
on
one
it?
comment on it, basically, now that everybody can go outside now, everything's all set up, the limits and all that, maybe we should, some of these places, we've done it for years, let's see the effects. How long does it take to recover? Let's make sure we're not wiping it out for the next 20 years. Let's just start taking a look at it. I know some of the other guys had safety issues with big holes where the guys that are digging, they're just falling in, and next, as we all know, you fall with your waders, you're in trouble.
Yes.
You're in big trouble. So I know that's what some of those guys was talking about.
Right,
My concern was just, let's make sure I'm not wiping them out for
right.
20 years recovery, especially now we have the outside set up, 20 bushels or whatever the heck the number is everybody can get. But I think you
Haven't found
need
anything.
If, I was gonna say if they're out there.
Haven't found I found
Yeah.
4 cohogs at the mouth of Hyannis Harbor, and that is all I found. Horseshoe crabs and conch.
Yeah,
That's all there is in the sound so far.
yeah.
And we knew that might be the case.
Well, still, I can't look you can't, it's gonna take years of
it'll
looking.
take time to find
Yeah, yeah.
where they're at, but we all know they're there. I know Downcape, those guys
Yeah,
kill it,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
kill it. They fill it, you see that
Oh,
big
yeah.
rock, they fill up truckloads like every
40
time.
fish totes full.
Well, we have at least a handful more months before this topic becomes more heated
Yeah.
again.
And if we wanted to fix it now, I'm sure we'd have a lot more participation.
Right.
I
Guys,
would like to suggest maybe having Josh do some sort of study on an area that we haven't judged yet, before, after.
Oh, like reaching out to the county?
Yeah,
Okay, I can do that.
And some place we've already dredged, pretty well.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah,
let's see where
It'd be
they're
nice
at.
if
Like the
they-
Mills River,
it's all
yeah.
cleaned up, all the big stuff.
We do have
Have
two
more
more
stuff.
people
There might be
getting
some small.
certified in scuba this year, so the capabilities of us to look at the bottom that's been dredged, post-dredge should be better and less of a scheduling conflict. The more people that we have that are certified for that, the easier it is for us to get people physically in the water to do it.
Supposedly the theory is when you get the bigger ones off the top, the little ones come up and they grow better. So it might be
There were no little ones.
real. It might be because all the joints
There
are on
was no
top.
little ones though.
So then that
And then
might
they
be.
come-
It
that
might be a matter
reason.
of giving them a year or two
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah.
to that size, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
That's the issue.
But just making sure that there are little ones.
No, yeah, so just to reiterate, like in the Mills River, no little ones
Yeah,
at all. Like 3 tows, 5 baskets,
Yep.
no little ones. 20 pieces out of 5 baskets would be little necks. And then the next year we had some razor clams, so nobody really did it. I did a little bit. Then the next year was the 3rd year. I did it quite a bit. And then the 4th year, and then that was the 3rd year that I started seeing the seed in there. And then the 4th year it was open. And then that was when I was catching over 200 little necks in 5 baskets from 3 years before. And not just the little necks in that you could keep, but every time you put a basket on the table to cull it, half a dozen little seed of varying sizes from thumbnail to very small. Something that I didn't see any of. I actually, to be completely honest, felt that when we started this, it was kind of like, and it wasn't just me, we felt like, what do we have to lose in this river? Because the clams were so affected with the boring sponge. They were atrophied. If you took a clam and cooked it, it was the size of a little neck of chowder. It was the size of a little neck, brown little booger when you boiled it. And so then I kind of thought, like everyone, what do we have to lose? With the condition of that water in there, I had very little hope. I hoped, but I had very little, I didn't think it was going to happen. And then to see it actually happen was just unbelievable, to be completely honest. I couldn't even, I can't, it's like a dream come true to see something that I thought would be lost forever actually come back, And, now there was a lot of boring sponge in there. Now there's a different kind of sponge. Whether that's directly the dredging or is that from clearing it and making new real estate for something else to come in. But I think that the dredging in the Mills River should be done again. It doesn't have to be open for a whole month. I just think that, and it could be, let the bull rakers go try it first, then maybe open it for 2 weeks for dredging, and then, because I think that sponge that has set up there, if we don't keep at it every once in a while, just a little bit. It doesn't have to be all month. It doesn't have to be, could you call it 2 days a week if you wanted to, for 2 weeks or something, just to fluff that stuff up and clean the bottom off. I don't know, I think that's what would work. I think a rotation.
and I think proof of that too
Yeah,
is
with Josh
important,
coming in, yeah.
and just getting that documented
Yeah.
and, cause say another area that we wanna do and, presenting that is important,
Not just for us, for the whole East Coast.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so many degraded areas with cohogs in it that this could help tons of municipalities and commercial fishermen and everything,
100%. And I mean, I think that's important, and also, just a little bit of monitoring just in case things aren't
Yeah.
going, and especially in other areas we try or whatnot, so, I definitely think it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Just what you just said was just amazing.
Oh, thanks.
When this
Can
dredging.
you
'cause-
identify yourself,
Oh,
please?
sorry, I'm Betty Ludke. I'm the
Okay.
town councilor from precinct 3.
Thank you.
And I'm just, they're in executive session, so I'm over here listening. It's
Welcome.
my first time attending, so thank you. But what you said was absolutely incredible. And earlier you were talking about this DPW dredging, like it was for channels and things. It sounds to me, although I don't know, were you just getting muck off the bottom? Is that what you're talking about? What were you talking about that?
In the Mills River, there was, there's this boring sponge. It's a parasitic sponge. I don't know if you call it that. It grows, not necessarily, it grows on shell, and it prefers, doesn't really matter, live or dead shell. So in this river, there's a lot of shell on the bottom. with boring sponge on it. There's boring sponge on top of dead shell, and underneath that were clams. And the clams, the cohogs were trying to poke themselves out of the ground because there's so much fouling on the surface that their tips of their shells were actually exposed and getting affected by this boring sponge drilling holes into them and making them weak. And so when we went in there, we were basically trying to get as much of the sponge and shell out, and we moved it to different areas out of this bottom, and then got the clams. And then just through what other researchers have said is basically that in every commercial fisherman I've ever talked to basically says that if you work the bottom, you will improve the bottom. And they say that it is anaerobic.
Yeah.
And so when you turn the bottom, it aerates the bottom and it reduces that low oxygen level at the very lowest level of the surface. The baby seed, the problem on the south side is a clam can live on the south side, but the very smallest seed can't live. So that's where the problem is. We're not getting new clams. And so I guess, put the pieces together, you dredge the bottom, then you remove the anaerobic bottom, and you loosen the soil and you clean the real estate, and then the clams, when they breed, now they have a place to go. And then, not to jump around too much, but back to when we first started dredging, those clams, they had the boring sponge on them and they were atrophied. Well, after we dredged for a few, in the clam meat inside was very bad. After a few years, the chowders that had been there when we first started dredging had improved. There was very little to no clams with boring sponge on it. The holes were healing, and the meat inside was luscious and pink, like it's supposed
incredible.
to be. Yeah.
So I hope you can keep doing whatever,
Yeah, and it should also be mentioned that like when you say dredging, it's not the same kind of.
I have a vision of
It's a cohog.
It's a non-hydraulic
It's like a cage on the
dredge.
bottom that drags on the bottom. Yeah, like a
Okay.
scallop drag.
It's called like a dry drag or a dry dredge. It's a
So who
non-hydraulic.
does this?
Commercial
Just a
fishermen.
handful of commercial shellfishermen in town.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a pilot program that.
We're
turned
trying
into
to formalize in some way, but there are also people that long rake and that bull rake, and there's, concerns, not over like competition for area, but also some safety issues. And we don't formally know exactly, you can say anecdotally that these things have happened, but there hasn't been a formal study done. So it's still very much in its infancy stages, and we continue to kind of argue about it, suss it out over the past handful of years.
Sorry to interrupt, but this.
No, not at
to me,
all.
This is amazing, absolutely
thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments? Was there anything else?
Do you want me to leave this on the agenda as a continued discussion, or like how
You
do
can
you?
ask them if they want.
I
Okay,
think
fair enough.
until
I will.
it's actually brought up. And
Yeah, some of the
Yeah.
other guys that had their concerns,
Like
maybe, yeah.
the proponents,
Yes,
we'll say.
yes.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
And then, yeah.
I have one matter, not reason.
Is it the one?
That,
I
yes,
was
that I
about to
texted
say.
you about,
Alright.
yes. So because we took Scudder Lane off of the agenda, I was just invited to a meeting regarding Scudder Lane today for Friday. So I'm assuming it is because the alternative set of plans has come about. But, there's a number of people that attend this meeting, and I've said I can attend. If others can't, it may be rescheduled, I don't know. But hopefully, I will be meeting with DPW, harbor master, staff, et cetera, on Friday to take a peek at the revised plans. So maybe I'll have something for you next month. And if we do, then I'll put it back on the agenda.
All right. Cool. I will recommend a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion that we adjourn Shellfish Committee meeting May 14th, 2025.
Second.
Third.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Cool.